Welcome to Last Dawn Stories channel, Chapter 1, The Arrival of Doomsday. This story is entirely fictional. The scientific theories and doomsday rules are purely imaginary and should not be associated with reality. Due to the scorching weather, our homeroom teacher still wouldn't allow us to turn on the air conditioning. Our entire class protested, only to be punished by being forced to stand under the blazing sun on the sports field. Fortunately, the principal happened to pass by. After understanding the situation, he let us move to a shaded area and went to mediate with the homeroom teacher. I grabbed my best friend's arm, making her stay and keep standing in punishment with me, because I knew that in 10 minutes, any place with shadows would be devoured by monsters. I had been reborn. When my vision focused, I found myself still standing on the scorching playground. There was no shade here, no shadows, just the blazing summer sun beating down relentlessly. Within a minute, sweat would drench your body. The sports committee member spotted the passing principal with sharp eyes and loudly greeted, "Hello, principal." These details overlapped with my memories from my previous life. I had truly been reborn. A wave of relief from surviving the disaster surged over me, but reality struck me immediately. I glanced at my watch. There were only 10 minutes left before the apocalypse arrived. From then on, all shadows would turn into monsters, devouring everything in places untouched by sunlight. The sports committee member had already finished explaining to the principal, who then instructed us to move to a shaded area. I quickly grabbed my best friend, who was about to follow the crowd. "Sarah, do you trust me?" In the previous life, Sarah followed her classmates into the shadows and became one of the first victims devoured by the monsters. While my stubbornness allowed me to escape the first wave, this time I can't just watch my best friend get eaten by monsters. Seeing the determination in my eyes, Sarah nodded despite the scorching 40-degree heat. "I believe best friends are like this, trusting unconditionally." I gripped my best friend's hand tightly, counting the seconds silently in my heart. "Sarah, whatever you do, don't look back later. No matter what you hear, don't look back." In my previous life, I was practically half absent in the team because I had to watch helplessly as my best friend was devoured, completely dragging the team down. This time, reborn, I will survive with my best friend until the rescue arrives. My best friend and I held hands, quietly waiting for the apocalypse to come. "You two have separated from the class. You can't just stand there by yourselves." "Exactly, we'll fight to the end." 2 minutes left. A dozen classmates who usually got along well with me saw that Sarah and I were still standing in place without moving, so they came forward to join us in the punishment. In my previous life, they were all among the first to be devoured. This time, I thought, surely no one would willingly stay for forced punishment, so I only held on to my best friend. Unexpectedly, so many classmates saw us standing still and joined in as well. This is the class collective. Look at them, they're insane. Just like a total idiot. It's killing me with laughter. The voices belonged to Tina and Helen standing below the school building. They never got along with Sarah and me in class, acting weird every single day. Sarah and I used to joke that they were like those village aunties who'd curse at even a passing dog. I glanced back at them one last time and couldn't help but smirk. "Sorry, but this is the fate you chose." 1 minute left. I listened to the mocking laughter behind me, counting down the seconds in my heart. A strong gust of wind blew past, and a cloud covered the sun. 3 seconds left. The wind blew the cloud away, and the sun emerged. Screams and the low growls of monsters echoed from behind. The apocalypse had arrived. "What's going on? What happened?" Sarah heard the commotion and wanted to turn around to look, but I quickly steadied her. "Don't look, the end is here." I could only prevent Sarah from seeing the terrifying scene behind her. The other students on the playground had already turned around and witnessed the grotesque beauty of the monsters feeding. A group of monsters were tearing into Helen, who lay on the ground, her blood black as it pooled around her, eerie and horrifying. Perhaps because there were fewer students near the school building this time, fewer monsters had spawned. Tina narrowly escaped being swallowed whole, but 2 monsters were slowly gnawing on her arms and legs. Chapter 2, Under the Apocalypse. Some students on the playground under the sun had already spotted the monsters slowly forming in the distance ahead, while others turned around and screamed in terror. Fortunately, most were too frightened to move from their spots. "Everyone, stay in the sunlight and you'll be safe. Don't step into the shadows. I'll go rescue people first. Whatever you do, don't enter the shadows. Stay calm, and don't step on anyone's shadow." I quickly organized everyone to prevent panic. My next task was to lead the remaining students of Class 7 to survive under this apocalypse until help arrived. Everyone was filled with fear and confusion. I quickly settled the safe students on the playground and then checked the number of monsters near Tina. It's manageable. I borrowed lighters from 2 boys, avoided the shadows, and picked up a relatively thick branch from a tree pit. There were a few tissues in my school uniform pocket, so I tied them to the branch with a small hairband from my wrist and lit the tissues. A simple torch was ready. Of course, I would save as many lives as possible. Tina still had a chance. I stand under the sun, squinting to find the right moment. The weakness of these monsters lies in the faint edges of their shadows, where light meets darkness. Just a tiny spark is enough to turn them to ashes. This was the only method I learned in my past life to destroy the monsters. A black mass of a monster sways, a cold gust of wind. Now is the time. I took 2 steps forward, the torch touching the shadow's ethereal edge. A large mass of the monster roared and shrieked, burning to nothing in less than 2 seconds, leaving behind only black powder like soot. As the monster burned to ashes, I quickly moved forward, scooping up the unconscious Tina and calling a male classmate to help me carry her to the playground. The rescue took less than 2 minutes. By the time I returned to the playground, all the surviving classmates from outside the teaching building had already gathered. I scanned the area twice and spotted my target. This life is very different from the last one. In the previous life, only 15 people remained on the playground in the end. Later, Lucas organized everyone into 2 groups to search for supplies and surviving classmates. It was also during the supply search that he discovered the monster's weakness and taught us how to deal with them. But in this life, not only has our class gained over a dozen more people, but several other classes having PE at the time also have quite a few survivors. Lucas noticed me too. The moment our eyes met, we immediately understood. He has also been reborn. Jenny. Lucas walked over while taking off his school uniform jacket and draped it over Tina. In my previous life, Lucas and I hadn't met at this point, which further confirms that Lucas has also been reborn. Come here for a moment. Lucas called me over to a secluded spot near the shadows, and before walking away, he reminded the classmates not to approach each other and to avoid stepping on the shadows. You too? Lucas nodded. An overwhelming sense of helplessness began to engulf me. Lucas also being reborn means he died shortly after I did. Lucas was the strongest in our survivor group, organizing rescues and helping us scrape by. If even he died, then our entire survivor group must have been wiped out. Why? I remember clearing a path for you when I died. Did it fail, or was the method just not viable? I grabbed Lucas's school uniform, growing more agitated as I spoke, my voice eventually choking up. If it's not viable, then the chances of nearly 200 of us surviving on the playground in this life are practically zero. Who the hell are you, bullying people even in the apocalypse? Sarah suddenly ran over and gave Lucas a shove, nearly pushing him into the shadows. Luckily, I reacted quickly and pulled him back. Are you okay? I immediately checked Lucas from head to toe. He's the backbone of our group. If anything happened to him, I wouldn't be entirely confident in leading everyone to survive till the end alone. It's fine. It's fine. The little girl's got quite the strength, but she should use it in the right places. Seeing me side with Lucas, Sarah was instantly dumbfounded. Chapter 3. The Need for Reborn Individuals When Doomsday Arrives, a Science Popularization. She recalled the past 6 or 7 years since she met me, and it seemed she hadn't encountered such a person before. Moreover, someone this handsome would surely have left an impression on her. Jenny, who is this person? Sarah looked at me, hesitating to speak, then glanced at Lucas, who lowered his head to avoid her gaze. Sarah instantly reached a conclusion. Wait, Jenny, when did you start dating? Damn, now is not the time to worry about whether I'm dating or not. It's not an object. We've been reborn. Yeah, we've been reborn. We've already lived through all this once before. Lucas also helped explain. Sarah recalled my reaction just now. It really didn't seem like someone experiencing it for the first time, especially when saving people. It felt as familiar as if I hadn't completely forgotten it from a past life. I believe whatever Jenny says. Sarah lowered her head, staring at the overlapping shadows of me and Lucas for a few seconds. Can I ask a few questions? Okay. Lucas and I said in unison. When did I die in my previous life? 10 minutes ago, along with Helen and the others. Sarah was startled by my words. She pursed her lips and then asked, what about you too? I survived with the team for over half a month. Later, Lucas found a breakthrough. We tried to get into the gymnasium by paving the way with our bodies like goats crossing a cliff. I was the one who led the way, the first to fall off the cliff. After saying this, I looked at Lucas. I also wanted to know what they had gone through after my death. we made it into the gymnasium. At first, everything went smoothly, and my guess was correct, but later, we ran out of supplies and had no choice but to go out to find food. The three of us went together, but I don't know who pushed me into the shadows. I narrowed my eyes, recalling the team assignments from my previous life. There are always 5 people who act together with Lucas, including me. I listed the names of several people who often work together. No, anyone among the 12 who survived could be the one. I don't know who's following me. I nodded and began to think about who this defector might be. After all, we still can't confirm whether that person has been reborn, nor do we know who that person is or why they would want to kill Lucas so ruthlessly. Can I ask one more question? Sarah snapped me out of my thoughts. Sure, Lucas was happy to explain to someone he trusted. What was the breakthrough you discovered? Lucas pulled out his phone from his pocket and turned on the flashlight. You understand how shadows form, right? But if light shines on a shadow, the shadow changes direction. The monsters are created from shadows formed by sunlight. Shadows made by this kind of light don't spawn monsters, Lucas demonstrated as he spoke, reaching out to touch a shadow not formed by sunlight. Nothing happened when he touched it. I don't know the reason yet. It might be related to the anomaly with the sun. In our previous life, we used this principle. We waited for a cloudy day, each held a flashlight to redirect the shadows, and entered the gymnasium. Sarah turned to look at me again. I scratched my head and explained. I was the first to run out of ammo and the last to enter the gym. I got scared, tripped, and was swallowed up. At that moment, the clouds parted, and sunlight shone directly down. The monster, noticing me in the shadow, quickly formed. Seeing the monster take shape, I thought of Sarah being eaten and froze in fear. That 1 second of hesitation was all it took for the rapidly forming shadow to engulf me. What about at night? Without sunlight, there are no shadows, so no monsters, right? Lucas shook his head. There is. The principle is the same at night as during the day. You need to stand in a lit area. Monsters can also spawn in unlit places, and the probability is higher in shadowed areas during the day. So complicated. I nodded in agreement as well. We've only been figuring it out for a little over half a month, and that's about all we've managed to understand so far. Is it also because stepping on shadows can create monsters? Before my best friend could finish her question, a scream echoed from the distance behind us. Lucas and I exchanged glances and immediately ran toward the source of the scream. Chapter 4. The cause of the apocalypse. There lay a tall and burly boy, and I vaguely remembered him as the PE monitor from the neighboring class. A girl was sobbing, looking utterly at a loss for what to do. Stepped on a shadow. Lucas crouched down to check the situation and told me to disperse the crowd to prevent anyone else from stepping on shadows. I shouted about the consequences of stepping on shadows, telling everyone to keep their distance, rest in place in an orderly manner, and not move around randomly. Now, the question Sarah didn't ask aloud has its answer. Stepping on a shadow causes internal injuries to the person whose shadow was stepped on. The monster directly attacks the internal organs, leaving no visible external wounds, but in reality, the monster is already gnawing on the internal organs of the affected area. However, there is a way to recover. As long as the person hasn't been completely devoured by the monster, the wounds can heal by basking in the sunlight. If anyone were to check on Tina lying on the playground now, they would notice that her left arm and right leg, which had been devoured, have already healed, though what was eaten cannot be restored. Lucas checked and found that the sports committee member wasn't seriously injured, but had fainted from the internal organ impact caused by the monster. Lucas stood up to comfort the girl who had accidentally stepped on a shadow. It's okay, he'll wake up soon. From now on, be extra careful not to step on any shadows. After what just happened, Lucas and I quickly decided to explain the current situation and the conclusions we'd drawn from the previous shadow apocalypse to the students on the field. My best friend also joined our science education team. Each of the 3 of us took a section and began teaching, not only what we just explained to Sarah, but also some of Lucas's unverified hypotheses. For example, whether there are still survivors in the classroom. If his conclusion is correct, there should be quite a few survivors in the teaching building, but the playground is surrounded by shadows, and the only place we can break through is the nearby gymnasium. Even though we lost 3 people there in our previous attempt, we need water and food. The convenience store is right next to the playground, but we must be very careful because of the shadows. In the previous life, many people indoors panicked and ran out without knowing what was happening, only to be devoured by monsters. In this life, I can't guarantee how many such people there will be, but right now, we can't communicate with the teaching building dozens of meters away from the playground. What we need to do next is organize these over 200 people, first gather water, food, lighters, and flashlights, then move together to the gymnasium and wait for the government's response. While explaining the apocalypse mechanism, we are also searching for any other reincarnators, but judging by everyone's reactions, only Lucas and I have been reborn. However, we can't be sure if someone is pretending to be clueless, but we don't have time to worry about that now. Lucas gathered a few trusted brothers from our previous life, and the two of us went to clear a path to the convenience store. Once we succeeded, we would call everyone to move the supplies together. Lucas was responsible for setting the fire, while I held a phone flashlight to light the way and directed the others on how to proceed. After all, I had managed to survive for over half a month in my previous life, so this journey went incredibly smoothly, even more so than last time. I was the first to reach the inside of the small shop, flicked on the light, and immediately heard the groans and roars of monsters beneath my feet. The electric light was killing the shadows underground. I glanced at Lucas with some confusion. Was it like this in the previous life too? Yes, when we first turned on the lights at the gym, it was the same. The monsters can move freely underground, but they fear light and sunlight. They can only appear in shadows created by direct sunlight. I nodded in understanding, but inside, I grew even more puzzled about what had caused these monsters to form. Chapter 5, Relocating. The small shop had a simple layout. The outer room was an open convenience store, while the inner room served as a storage area. Our first trip was to move water. Since the 40-degree heat outside was no joke, to survive, we had no choice but to endure the direct sunlight. There are 50 boxes of water. I'm responsible for inventory and counting, while my best friend handles distribution, for 240 people. We currently have 600 bottles of water, one per person for now. Of course, some will complain it's not enough to drink. Don't worry, there are still drinks at the convenience store. Everyone can pitch in to help carry them. A group of boys were vying to contribute, and many girls also wanted to help. I led the way, first taking them to the nearest and safest location from the gymnasium, where we would later move everything. Then, I guided them to the convenience store. The entire journey was filled with the smell of burning, and many were coughing from the smoke. There was no other choice. For safety, we had to sacrifice some of the school's greenery, though there was a bit of personal resentment involved. After all, who wouldn't want to set the school on fire, right? Thanks to everyone's efforts, we managed to gather all the supplies by the first afternoon and transported them to a safe area less than 20 meters from the gymnasium entrance. I glanced at my watch. It was just past 5 in the afternoon. Sunset was at 7, giving us 2 hours to relocate to the gymnasium. In our previous life, with fewer of us, we spent the entire night hiding under the streetlights on the field, but those lights grew dimmer each day, becoming increasingly unsafe, so Lucas stopped us from moving and led us into the gymnasium instead. According to Lucas, the water and power never stopped until his death. The gymnasium's office had a large water dispenser, 365-degree surrounding lights for safety, and even central air conditioning. With food secured, the gymnasium became a utopia in this shadow apocalypse. Once again, Lucas took the lead, bringing along several tall and strong boys to burn the area around the gymnasium. I scavenged handheld searchlights from the convenience store, originally used by security for patrols, and used them to illuminate the shadows, creating a path of light. To avoid stepping on each other's shadows, everyone lined up in an orderly fashion. Those who could carry supplies did so, each taking as much as they could. Tina was carried on the back of a strong girl, while the class monitor, who had fainted after his shadow was stepped on, regained some consciousness. 2 boys supported him as they entered the gymnasium last. Everything proceeded smoothly and methodically. The students carefully organized the supplies. I experimentally stepped on Lucas's shadow, but there was no reaction. Seeing this, the students' faces lit up with expressions of relief after surviving the ordeal. Some shouted, some laughed, and others hugged each other and cried. I nudged Lucas with my elbow and asked, "Why didn't you burn the school in the previous timeline? It's such an effective tactic. One fire and almost all the monsters were gone." Lucas thought carefully and recalled, in the previous life, there were no more lighters left. The last one seemed to have exploded on the playground due to the high temperature. I also remembered, back then, the lighter had exploded from the heat, and we had no choice but to use the floodlights and flashlights we scavenged from the convenience store to light our way. This time around, with more people, Lucas managed to borrow quite a few lighters, even some matches. In the previous life, all our fears stemmed from a lack of firepower, but now we set the entire school ablaze. sending all the monsters to a fiery grave. Inside the gymnasium, Lucas supervised the distribution of dinner. I had been on edge all afternoon and had little appetite, so I opened the gym door and sat by the entrance, watching the slowly vanishing sun. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt so relaxed. At some point, Sarah had also sat down beside me, bringing along a bowl of instant noodles. Not hungry, but now that I'm relaxed, I'll probably get hungry soon. I smiled, amazed that we could even think about hunger during the apocalypse. We truly had reached a point of basic comfort. Sarah hugged her knees, her face bathed in the fading light of the sunset, revealing a trace of sorrow. What do you think is happening inside the school building and outside the campus now? In the apocalypse, one cannot afford to be a saint. That's the rule of the end times. But as humans, emotions are a defining trait. We can't help but care and worry for our own kind. In the apocalypse, though we can't control our feelings, we can control our actions. I knew Sarah was worried about her friends in the school building and her family outside the campus. In our past life, even though we had phones and signal, we dared not contact anyone. It would have affected our will and mood to survive. This time, I hesitated, perhaps influenced by the melancholic atmosphere of the sunset. As long as we stay out of the shadows, we'll be fine. Words of comfort in an apocalyptic world are like a box of expired medicine. You might swallow them, but the effect is negligible. Sarah picked up the noodles and slurped a big mouthful. Let's not think about it for now. Whether I can survive myself is still a question. Jenny, what are we doing tomorrow? Seeing Sarah in better spirits, I also relaxed. I'll go scavenging in the dorms. You'd better not come with me. Sarah was well aware of her own capabilities and nodded, saying, I'll maintain order in the gymnasium. I have full confidence in Sarah's organizational skills. Since childhood, she's often served as class monitor or group leader, making her the most reliable and reassuring choice to take charge now. Chapter 6, Scavenging for Supplies. Lucas and I finalized the next day's arrangements before bed. He would stay at the gymnasium to attempt contact with the authorities and request rescue, while I would fight my way to the dormitories to gather supplies. If things went smoothly, I also planned to check the situation at the academic building. Lucas reminded me that in the previous life, they had tried to contact the teaching building but failed, suggesting the situation inside might not be optimistic. However, based on current conclusions, the teaching building should still be considered safe. I nodded in understanding and began packing the items I planned to take the next day. The backpack was found in the gymnasium. I placed a flashlight and a bottle of water inside, and tucked half a box of matches into the side pocket. The biological clock from my past life woke me before dawn, and opening my eyes to the gymnasium ceiling felt surprisingly comforting. Awake, a handsome face appeared in my line of sight, startling me. You didn't sleep. I got up and sat face to face with Lucas. In my previous life, I was too focused on survival to properly appreciate Lucas's famously handsome face at school. Now, sitting quietly so close to him, I actually felt a slight flutter in my heart. No, I woke up when it got a little brighter. Now is the safest time. You should take advantage of this moment when the sun hasn't risen yet and the shadows are at their weakest to go out. Oh right, it's the safest time now. I nodded in agreement, grabbed the bag beside me, and was about to run out. I'm not good at geography, so I don't know if the sun will peek out from the horizon the next second. I'm afraid of being devoured by monsters as soon as I step outside, but Lucas held onto my bag. Eat something before we go. He pulled out a loaf of bread and a sausage from somewhere and shoved them into my hands. You're too nervous. Are you okay? I quickly shook my head, slung my bag over my shoulder, stuffed the bread and sausage into my pocket, and ran toward the gymnasium entrance. The source of my nervousness is you, damn it. Later, I heard from Sarah that she groggily saw Lucas grinning foolishly at the gymnasium door that morning, and she thought she must have woken up too abruptly. I opened the gymnasium door, steadied myself, then took a big leap out of the building. Just then, I heard the eerie howls of the monsters behind me, but since the sun hadn't risen yet, the shadows were still faint, and the creatures couldn't emerge from them to hunt. I threw them a mocking laugh. Sorry, folks, I'm one step ahead of you. The journey went smoothly as I hopped and dodged shadows. The quiet campus seemed no different from before the apocalypse descended. Girl, don't linger outside. There are monsters. A faint voice came from the direction of the cafeteria. At first, I thought I'd misheard. Following the sound, I found the cafeteria lady. She had opened the cafeteria window and was softly warning me, there are monsters, there are monsters. Many people have already been eaten. Quick, come inside. Looking closely, the ant's entire body was trembling. Well, it's understandable, having lived for decades, suddenly encountering supernatural creatures beyond her comprehension, fear was inevitable. I stopped dozens of meters away from the cafeteria. Any further and I'd be in the shadows. Auntie, how many people are in the cafeteria? Hearing my question, the auntie was taken aback for a moment before turning around to count. 9 people. Yesterday afternoon, many ran out, and quite a few died. As she spoke, her voice began to choke up. Auntie, there's food and water in the cafeteria, right? If you have supplies, don't come out no matter what. There are monsters living in the shadows. They eat people. I know, we have water and food. Come inside quickly, girl. I quickly shook my head. Auntie, there are shadows and monsters ahead. I can't get through. Just take care of yourself. Many of us students are in the gymnasium. So don't worry. I squinted at the sky. The sun was halfway up. I have to go now. Hang in there a little longer. Auntie, we're already contacting the government to arrange a rescue. Auntie felt much more at ease when she heard we were contacting for rescue. She even wanted to give me some food, but I shook the bread in my hand and ran off. The cafeteria wasn't far from the dorm. I dodged the shade of trees along the way, setting fire whenever a monster seemed eager to attack, and soon reached the dorm entrance. Given the sun's current position, there were no shadows at the dorm entrance yet, but a pool of dried black blood remained. Someone had been devoured there yesterday. Truth be told, there were many traces of black blood along the way. But seeing the stain at the dorm entrance still filled me with deep sorrow and regret. I must live to see the day the monsters are destroyed in this lifetime. I must witness humanity's victory. Chapter 7, Choices in the Apocalypse. I crossed the black blood mark and leaped into the dormitory. Surprisingly, the lights in the dormitory hallway were on, making me feel there might still be survivors here. The apocalypse arrived during afternoon class time, so the dormitory shouldn't have had anyone in it. I walked through the first-floor hallway, calling out, but no one responded. On the second floor, the hallway lights were on, and one of the dorm rooms had its light on too. Is anyone there? If you're here, say something. The dorm room door wasn't completely closed. As I gently pushed it open a crack, something white came flying towards me. I instinctively swatted it away. It was a pillow, followed by the screams of a girl inside the dorm. It was a first-year junior high school girl, crouching in the corner with her head in her hands, utterly defenseless except for her sonic attack. Don't be afraid, I'm human, I'm Jenny from class 7, grade 11, I won't eat you, don't be scared. The girl gradually calmed down, staring at me blankly. How did you get in here? That thing eats people. I roughly understood. This girl must have witnessed the shadow eating someone at the dormitory entrance and was terrified. Spending the entire night alone in the dorm only added to her shock. That monster has weaknesses too. It's afraid of fire and light, only appearing in places with shadows. I handed her the water from my bag. The girl held the water without moving, and with nothing else to talk about, I turned to leave. Wait, where are you going? My dorm, to get some things. Where did you come from? The teaching building. I'm scared being here alone. I sized up the girl. I didn't want to take her back to the gym. First, I didn't know her, and there were too many uncertainties. Second, the supplies at the gym were limited. Sarah had calculated that the food stockpile would only last about half a month. Let me be straight with you. The dorm is safe. You can scavenge for supplies here and survive for a month without any issues. If you come with me, the food definitely won't be enough. And the journey is dangerous. I can manage alone, but with you, it's uncertain. Of course, if rescue comes, I'll make sure they come for you. The girl hesitated. I'm going upstairs. I'll ask you one more time before I leave. If you insist on coming with me, I can't stop you, but think carefully. The sun is already up, and the monsters become active as soon as they catch the scent of humans. You know how dangerous it is outside this dorm. I stopped wasting words on her and turned to go upstairs. I took the snacks I had brought, a few boxes of medicine, toilet paper, and my phone charger and power bank. I also gathered all the sanitary pads and toilet paper from the entire floor to take with me. The backpack was full, so I found another bag to hold the sanitary pads. I wasn't sure if any girls in the gym would need them, but these things are as essential as food and water. I couldn't carry any more. To ensure my own safety, I only took one bag. I had to keep one hand free to hold the torch. Before leaving, I asked the girl again, but she refused to come with me. Saying the dormitory was actually quite safe, I nodded and jumped out of the dormitory while the shadows at the door were still short. The way back to the gymnasium was harder than the way here, with many monsters trying to attack, but I burned them all away with a single flame. I used up the entire half-box of matches along the way, and it pained me as much as if someone had snapped my lipstick in half. But after safely returning to the gymnasium, many girls burst into tears of gratitude when they saw the sanitary pads I brought back, saying I had saved them a second time. Suddenly, wasting half a box of matches didn't seem so bad anymore. Chapter 8 Hope in Sight. I handed the charger to Lucas, and his phone, with its last 10% of battery, finally got a lifeline. "You're the savior," Lucas said as his phone charged, smiling at me. No, just strong survival instincts." Lucas smiled and lowered his head, tapped twice on his phone, then held it up for me to see. "Besides us, there should be other reincarnators." It was a news report. The government had issued a notice urging surviving residents to call the following number, as rescue efforts would be arranged as soon as possible. Another piece of news mentioned that the underground military bases built by the government a month ago had come into use, and surviving residents would be relocated to these underground military bases across various locations. There was none of this in the previous life. In the previous life, Lucas also had a phone. Before it ran out of power, he kept up with the news, but all platforms stopped updating, frozen just before the apocalypse arrived. This time, the underground military base, the distress call, the military rescue, all of it suggests that besides us, there are other reincarnators, and their identities are anything but ordinary. My eyes stung, and my lips trembled. "We're saved," Lucas nodded heavily. "We're saved." I only shared this news with Sarah, as we both feared that if all 200 people knew, it would be hard to manage and could lead to chaos. Lucas had already made the call, but unfortunately, the line was either busy or no one answered. Perhaps it was still the second day of the apocalypse, a time of chaos. We could wait. After hesitating for a long time, Sarah still borrowed my phone. She wanted to call home. It's like Schrodinger's cat, as long as the box remains unopened, no one knows whether the cat is alive or dead. Some would rather live in uncertainty forever than open the box and face reality, while others simply need to know the cat's condition, worried about her family. Sarah wanted to know if they were okay. I had no right to stop her from reaching out. I lent her my phone and reminded her that if she got through, she must tell her family to try contacting rescue services. Sarah said she understood. We went to a secluded spot to make the call. There were no more than 5 people in the gymnasium who had phones. Some might have already called their families in private. That was beyond my control. But if a crowd rushed over to borrow my phone to call their families and then broke down emotionally when they couldn't reach them, that was something we couldn't handle. Even I didn't dare to confirm the situation of my family. Sarah's third call was finally answered, by her older brother who was in college. I walked away a bit, giving her enough private space. After more than 10 minutes, Sarah returned the phone to me and told me her brother was safe in the dormitory, and their parents were also temporarily safe at their workplaces. Hearing the good news eased my mind a bit, as if the safety of her family meant mine was safe too. But from the moment the apocalypse began yesterday until now, I haven't received a single call from my family. On the 3rd day of the apocalypse, Lucas finally got through to the rescue hotline. The operator on the other end told us that someone from our school had already contacted them, but based on the reported numbers, it was likely survivors from the teaching building. They didn't know we were still alive. We reported our numbers. I told them there were still 9 people in the cafeteria, 1 in the girls' dormitory, and an unknown number in the boys' dormitory. The operator said their rescue team would thoroughly search the school for any remaining survivors and asked us to stay calm. They also mentioned we'd need to hold on for a few more days, explaining that with limited aircraft and numerous rescue missions, we might have to wait about a week. We can wait, but we're unsure how everyone in the teaching building is doing. Chapter 9, Unrest. On the 4th day of the apocalypse, unrest inevitably broke out in the gymnasium. At that time, Sarah and I were taking stock of the remaining supplies, while Lucas was climbing over the wall to access the external internet, trying to find out the reason behind this apocalypse. The chaos first erupted in a corner at the other end of the gymnasium, where Tina had been assigned. At first, we heard a few girls arguing, and then almost everyone ran over to see what was happening. By the time the 3 of us got there, the source of the conflict was already on the verge of a fight. Sarah was evacuating the crowd, while Lucas pulled Tina and another girl apart as they were about to start fighting. I was pulled aside to mediate the dispute. Tina just woke up, and when we noticed, we tried to help her up and give her some water, but she wouldn't accept our kindness. She pushed and hit us, insisting we were laughing at her. "Jenny, Isn't it infuriating? While she was unconscious, we took turns caring for her, giving her water and even mixing sugar water for her, and now that she's awake, she curses at us. It's like our kindness was thrown to the dogs. For a moment, I struggled to recognize their faces. After carefully recalling, I remembered that the girl fighting with Tina was the one who had carried her in earlier, the girl who pulled me aside to mediate, and her friend had volunteered to take care of Tina, even though none of them had known each other before the apocalypse. I have nothing to say to Tina either, and even somewhat regret saving her back then. If someone takes care of you and you don't appreciate it, you deserve to get beaten. I pulled Lucas further away, and Lucas, afraid another fight might break out, also pulled the girl over. Everyone, just disperse. Since she's awake now, let her take care of herself. Everyone, go about your own business. We dispersed the crowd of onlookers and pulled the few girls who had taken care of Tina to the other end of the gymnasium, giving them drinks and candy. You've had a tough time these days. She's ungrateful, but let's not stoop to her level. Getting angry only hurts your own health. I did my best to comfort these 3 girls, trying to handle the situation as smoothly as possible. We understand, one of the girls sighed. Right now, it feels like studying hard for an exam only to see our grades drop. It's just a bit disheartening. The other 2 girls also nodded in agreement. Sarah and I offered a few more words of comfort, and after thanking us, they left. I thought that was the end of it, but chaos erupted again when food was distributed in the evening. I rushed to the scene immediately, and after assessing the situation, I rolled my eyes and began skillfully dispersing the crowd. It's Tina causing trouble again. She's hungry and wants food. Someone nearby gave her a makeshift cane, but she refused it, insisting that someone must fetch it for her. Everyone knows what happened this morning. Who isn't aware that Tina is ungrateful and turns her back on people? Now she's making demands again. How could anyone help her? She's starting to make a scene again, claiming that everyone is isolating and bullying her. I'm exhausted, right now. I wish I could just throw her out of the gym. Don't just save anyone during the apocalypse, especially if you know that person has a bad character to begin with. Either eat, go get your own food, or starve if you refuse. No one's going to take care of you in the apocalypse. Seeing that everyone in the gym was listening to me and siding with me, Tina suddenly went berserk, throwing whatever was at hand in my direction. Jenny, who the hell do you think you are? How dare you boss me around? Get lost, all of you are just Jenny's bootlickers. Get lost. A few classmates who witnessed me saving someone couldn't stand seeing me being slandered and immediately slapped Tina. Who do you think saved you? If it weren't for Jenny, you'd have been eaten by monsters by now. Honestly, Jenny shouldn't have bothered. You should have ended up like Helen and been devoured. As if some switch had been flipped, the frenzied Tina suddenly froze. Seeing her motionless, the crowd soon dispersed. Grumbling and cursing, I went back to help distribute food as well. It didn't stay quiet for long before Tina, leaning on her crutch, lined up at the very end of the queue. When it was her turn, she insisted on taking 2 portions of dinner. The so-called dinner was just a piece of bread, a sausage, and a single bowl of instant noodles to be shared between 2 people, to ensure we could last until rescue arrived. This was the most reliable meal arrangement we could manage. But this arrangement is still quite risky, if we ration carefully. We can hold out for a little over a week. If rescue comes later, we'll have to go out again to find food. Technically, giving her 2 portions is something we could grit our teeth and manage, but after the afternoon's drama, no one agreed to it. It's unfair that you're eating 2 portions by yourself. Exactly, and we're already being merciful by giving food to someone so ungrateful. Don't fucking push your luck. If you eat it, what are we supposed to eat? Seeing that everyone had cursed enough, I waved my hand to signal that it was enough. The gymnasium instantly fell silent. 1, and no more. The most I can do is give you my bread. Tina didn't say a word. She snatched an extra loaf from my hand and limped back to the corner. I didn't even need to ask. Soon enough, someone came to report on Tina's situation. That extra bread Tina took was for Helen. She placed it on the ground and kept murmuring something. I shrugged, indicating it was expected. Though every detestable person has their pitiable side, I couldn't muster any pity. When the whole class continued standing in punishment, it was their own choice to stay in the shade, and they were the ones who called us idiots. Don't mind her, as long as she doesn't cause trouble. There's no need to keep an eye on her all the time. The classmate nodded in understanding, handed me his bread, and then ran off. I didn't even have time to explain that I'd brought some food back from the dorm. Well, saved a small bread roll. Consider it a contribution to the public good. Chapter 10, Salvation. Tina remained relatively normal later on, as long as no one made eye contact with her. the gymnasium stayed quiet. We peacefully spent 5 days, marking the calendar with our fingers. Tomorrow would be the day I was devoured by monsters in my previous life. It's somewhat amusing that I'm actually counting down to the anniversary of my own death. The chirping of cicadas shattered the tranquility of the afternoon, while the sound of helicopter blades grew louder, approaching from a distance. The classmates sitting at the door pointed at the distant sky, jumped up, and shouted, "Helicopters, helicopters!" I dropped my phone and rushed to the door with the others. 5 helicopters flew over the school, 2 were landing near the teaching building. 2 hovered above the playground, and 1 headed for the dormitory rooftop. Yes, rescue had arrived. Cheers erupted from every corner of the school, the gymnasium, the classrooms, anywhere people were gathered. The nation had come to rescue us. In my previous life, there had been no sign of rescue on this day, and the government had collapsed. The arrival of help now only confirmed that other reincarnators existed. I exchanged a glance with Lucas, and he understood instantly. "I'll handle the negotiations." "Excuse me." On the playground, 2 helicopters landed steadily. 3 people jumped out of each helicopter. The first 2 splashed something on the shadowed areas, while the third unloaded a large searchlight, illuminating the shadowed spots to pave a path for us, children, in an orderly manner. With spacing, 1 by 1, I held Sarah back to stay at the end of the line, while Lucas moved to the middle of the group to explain the situation to the leading officer. No one paid any more attention to Tina, and in the end, she was carried onto a stretcher by the assigned medical team and was among the first to board the helicopter. Since there were quite a few of us, it took 2 helicopter trips to evacuate everyone from the gymnasium. Sarah, Lucas, and I were left until the very end, and we left with the evacuating troops. The young man already told me, "You're a reincarnator too." I nodded. "Yes, in my previous life, I died tomorrow." The officer acknowledged and then looked at Sarah. I shielded Sarah. "She's not, she's my friend." The officer smiled. I know. The young man just told me that you're like a lost soul without your friend. I've already reported to my superiors, and they've approved for you to bring your friend along, but you must cooperate with our work." Hearing that Sarah and I could stay together, we both felt a bit happier. I gave the officer a somewhat sloppy military salute. "I guarantee full cooperation and completion of the mission." Sarah chimed in with me. "I won't cause any trouble for the country." During the journey, the officer only told us about our destination and the people we might encounter. As for other details, he didn't know because they were beyond his clearance level. The 3 of us would be taken to the Central Military Unit, where all those who claimed to be reincarnators were being sent, according to that officer. Someone had discovered a connection between us reincarnators and the impending apocalypse, and there was a chance we could end this supernatural farce. This same person had also alerted the nation, prompting the construction of numerous underground military bases 2 years before the apocalypse and stockpiling enough supplies to sustain the entire population for several years. As for who this person was, we would only find out once we reached the Central Military Unit. The helicopter landed. Its doors opened, and beams of intense light shone directly on us, as if we were wanted criminals. I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the light. It's so intense that not only would monsters be affected, but even I'm almost blinded by it. Chapter 11, The Laboratory. After landing, Sarah was taken away separately since she wasn't involved in the research experiments. Lucas and I followed 2 officers into the underground research facility. Those 2 officers didn't have sufficient clearance. So after guiding us through 2 checkpoints, they were replaced by an armed officer who led us further. After 2 more checkpoints, we were handed over to a middle-aged woman in a white lab coat. The middle-aged woman, after handing over with the officer, looked us up and down. "Still students?" Yes, 2nd year of high school." "What are your names?" "Jenny." "Lucas." "All right, my surname is James. You can just call me Professor James." Professor James led us through 2 doors that required ID card swipes, finally arriving at our ultimate destination. It was a spacious laboratory, with rows of computer screens flickering with numerical symbols, and at the far end of the lab, a screen displayed information we couldn't comprehend. Behind the computer at the end of the lab sat a young man who appeared only a few years older than us. "This is where you'll be working together in the future. He'll guide you through the research experiments." After Professor James introduced us gently, he turned and rushed toward the young man, his demeanor completely transformed, as if he'd switched to a second personality. "Herman, didn't I tell you not to eat candy?" "Why not? I work diligently for the country, striving to save all of humanity, and you won't even let me have candy." Herman's lollipop was snatched away. instantly ruining the imposing aura he had just established. Right now the base doesn't have a dentist, so don't come to me if your tooth hurts, Herman pouted, pulled out 2 more candies from his pocket, and walked over to share them with me and Lucas. Here, you guys have these. Sorry my mom was so loud. Hey, Professor James still wanted to educate her son, but Herman pushed her out of the lab. Alright, Mom, we need to discuss lab secrets now. Bye. Lucas and I held the candies, somewhat at a loss. Heh, look at you laughing. Herman pulled out chairs for us to sit. I've got some nerve issues with my teeth. Doctor says no more sweets. You guys taste them for me. Lucas didn't want to waste words with him, put the candy away, and got down to business. So when exactly did you get reborn? No need for formalities, that makes me sound old. Just call me by my name. I was reborn 2 years ago, and in my previous life. I survived for 2 years after the apocalypse hit, from what I can tell. How long you lived in your past life seems related to when you're reborn in this one. What about you guys? Mine's tomorrow, I'm next week, but we were reborn around the same time. Herman clicked the mouse, recording the information we had just provided. Alright, he clicked the mouse again, pulling up a PowerPoint slide on the screen. Let me explain what we need to do next. Currently, there are 53 reborn individuals in the base, including me. To put it simply, I've discovered that the phenomenon of rebirth is connected to the shadow monsters. Our goal is to try to establish contact with the monsters, persuade them to retreat, and achieve a peaceful resolution. Lucas raised his hand as if answering a question and asked, "Can I know the reason for the apocalypse?" My current guess is that it's related to the sun. Herman snapped his fingers. Right. There is indeed a connection. He flipped to another slide in the PPT, which displayed the solar system. However, unlike the textbook version, this one featured an additional black hole roughly the size of Earth, positioned between the sun and our planet. As you can see, there's an extra black hole here, and the emergence of the monsters is related to it. I raised my hand like a school kid and asked, so can we assume those shadow monsters are actually aliens? That's right. And our rebirth is also influenced by the black hole. Our fluctuations have resonated with the monsters, making us the key to breaking through them. I'm a humanities student, so while I don't fully understand what Herman means by fluctuation resonance, I can grasp that we're the key to restoring the world to its proper course. You just need to cooperate with our work. It's fine if there's a lot you don't understand. I nodded, then raised my hand again. Herman laughed at me. Just ask if you have questions. No need to raise your hand like a school kid. Oh, well, why didn't we just stay home before doomsday like during the pandemic? Though asking this now is kinda pointless. I wanted to, but my dad wouldn't accept it. I could make up all sorts of reasons for him to report building underground bases and stockpiling food, but getting people to stay home without any apparent reason, no matter how I tried, I couldn't come up with a decent excuse. This outcome is already the best I could manage within my abilities. Got it. After all, most people wouldn't believe in something like reincarnation. The only thing Herman could do was to prepare the post-apocalyptic safeguards in advance. Convincing people to stay home and isolate during peacetime to avoid the impending doom was still quite difficult to achieve. Alright, let's get back on topic. Herman spent a long time explaining a bunch of professional knowledge and the upcoming research experiment arrangements before escorting us out of the lab. He told us to find the officers outside, as they would take us to the dormitory. Does all this need to be kept confidential? Before leaving, I somewhat uncertainly asked Herman, since I was staying with Sarah, and there was always the chance I might slip up one day. No need. Everyone in this base is one of us. So there's nothing to keep secret. It's mainly because the lab equipment is so valuable that there are so many security checkpoints. I nodded to show I understood, but don't talk about it with people outside the base. Although we have phones here to contact family, you just need to explain that you're safe in another base. Got it. I understood his meaning and quickly nodded in agreement. The central forces are certainly safe, but the condition of other bases outside is uncertain. Before the end of the apocalypse, we still need to keep our experimental content confidential from outsiders. Chapter 12. At the base, go back and rest if you need to, have fun if you want, and talk more with your family if you can. Tomorrow, after the rescue operation in the last zone is completed, we'll have to get busy. Lucas and I went back to our respective dormitories. The male and female dorms were in 2 separate areas, so we said goodbye at the stairwell. Lucas waved with a smile. See you in the lab tomorrow when we get the notice. See you tomorrow. The dorm conditions at the base were far better than those at school. Double rooms with single beds and private bathrooms. Sarah and I were assigned to share a room. Herman said this is for the sake of our mental health as minors. So, what's the deal? Are you guys getting taken away for experiments? True best friend. The kind who loves stirring up drama without caring about the consequences, pretty much, yeah. I roughly explained to Sarah the cause of the apocalypse and the relationship between us reborns and the end of the world. Unexpectedly, Sarah got even more excited. No way, no way. So you're not 100% human now, right? Can I assume you have alien genes? Could your kids travel through time? Wow, that's insane. Stop. I covered Sarah's face. I know you're excited, but hold your horses. We haven't even started the experiment yet, and I'm not entirely clear on the details myself. Wait until we have some results, wait until the apocalypse is over, then you can get excited. Alright, alright, alright. By the way, did you call your uncle and aunt? You came with me to the central base, already reported. They've already reached the underground base and said I'm much safer here than they are there. Sarah pulled me along to teach me how to use the dormitory landline. You should call your uncle and aunt too. I hesitated. I'm a coward. I didn't dare face the question of whether they were safe or not. Go ahead and call. My mom said she saw your parents at the base, and they're perfectly safe. You should call to let them know you're okay too. The heavy weight in my heart suddenly lifted, and I relaxed all at once, tears finally spilling from my eyes. With trembling hands, I dialed my mother's phone number. 12 seconds of busy tone. Then a mechanical female voice informed me the phone was turned off. I dialed my father's number, the same outcome. I wiped away my snot and tears, forcing out a smile. Maybe the signal is bad. I was just about to suggest going to the cafeteria with Sarah when the landline suddenly rang. I quickly ran to answer it. It was a familiar voice. Hello, it's Mom. Mom, I completely lost it. In these 2 lifetimes, I finally received the news that my parents were safe. Your dad and I have both arrived at the base. Where are you? We've met many of your classmates. And they all said they haven't seen you or Sarah. Where did you go? Mom, we're safe, because we saved many people. They thought I was capable and sent me to volunteer with the Central Forces. We're now safely in the dormitory. I told a lie, hoping Mom wouldn't worry too much. Be safe, don't cause trouble for others, eat well, take good care of yourself. Yeah, I definitely will, Mom, you and Dad too. After talking with Mom, Dad also came to check on me. I've never chatted with my parents for this long before. We talked about so much. If I hadn't made an excuse about the troops assembling, the conversation might have lasted the entire afternoon. The first day was relatively easy. Sarah and I explored the base, visited the cafeteria, and picked up our daily necessities. On the way, I also ran into Lucas and told him he could go collect the supplies. He also informed me that we have a lab meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Get some rest early. See you tomorrow. Lucas waved at me and headed in the direction where we had just collected the supplies. Same to you. Bye-bye. After we walked away, Sarah came sniffing around. Oh, get some rest. That goes for you too. Get some rest. I quickened my steps to escape Sarah's gossip trap. The first day passed quickly. Having not slept in a bed for 2 lifetimes, I collapsed onto the mattress as soon as I lay down and slept straight through until noon the next day. When I checked my phone, it was already past 10 a.m. Sarah and I idled away another day. Around 6 in the evening, I headed to the lab. The meeting informed us of the next day's schedule and distributed materials to us. We're going to be very busy from now on. Everyone should rest well tonight. This is a tough battle, and humanity must win. In the days that followed, Herman led the laboratory staff and the reborn individuals from across the country who agreed to cooperate in the research experiments. This experiment lasted for 3 years. Over these 3 years, we encountered numerous difficulties. There were moments of doubt and thoughts of giving up, but Herman persevered. Through continuous experimentation, repeated setbacks, and relentless testing, calculations, and inspections, we finally succeeded in establishing communication with the monsters in the winter of the 3rd year. Herman's first message was, "We request that you leave Earth." The shadow creatures responded, "We can negotiate terms." Upon receiving the response, Herman immediately reported it to Central Command. The next day, a negotiation expert was sent to the laboratory. However, the expert was also helpless, saying that he had only ever dealt with humans, and this was his first time negotiating with monsters. The leader of the monsters demanded that humans arrange a habitat for them, stating that they would withdraw once they had a place to survive. That same day, our country and the surviving nations around the world deliberated and decided to offer the far side of the moon as a habitat for the shadow monsters. After that day, The research was no longer our business as the Reborn. The scientists began studying how to transfer the black hole to the far side of the moon. Our work was done, and we returned to the base in our hometown. After more than 3 years, I finally saw my parents again, holding my dad with my left hand and hugging my mom with my right. I said goodbye to Sarah and Lucas. Time to go home. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. We were all so happy. The happiest day since the apocalypse began. That day, humanity found hope. Chapter 13. The very end. The next day, Sarah brought me unexpected yet anticipated news. Tina had been hospitalized after being raped. It was said that someone had witnessed the incident, but because she had offended too many people, the witness didn't want to get involved and only called the police after walking away. However, in this apocalyptic world, the base wasn't entirely safe, and the police response time was much slower than in peaceful times. When Tina was rescued, the perpetrator had already fled far away. However, the base surveillance wasn't just for show. The perpetrator was identified the next day and arrested under controlled operations. Believing it was out of concern, I bought flowers and went to the hospital. I placed the flowers on the bedside table. Startled by the noise, Tina woke up abruptly. When she recognized me, her expression shifted repeatedly, its dramatic intensity rivaling that of Peking opera face changing. "Is it you, Jenny? How heartless can you be to leave someone to die?" "Not me. I just returned to the base yesterday. Besides, 3 years ago I didn't leave anyone to die. It's you who's shameless, valuing face more than life." Tina was left speechless by my words and could only resort to the professional green tea emergency response tactics to deal with me. Tina started crying loudly. "I'm already like this and you're still bullying me. What did I do to offend you? I didn't do anything wrong, did I? Why do you have to bully the victim?" I just quietly watched her perform here until a nurse noticed the commotion and hurried over to check on me, concerned for my safety. "Are you all right? The patient seems emotionally unstable. You should examine her. I have things to attend to, so I'll take my leave." Tina was so stunned by how respectfully the nurse treated me that she even forgot to cry. "Jenny, what the hell is your status that even the damn nurses are fawning over you?" The young nurse froze awkwardly, then looked at me. I gave her an awkward smile in return. Seemed like the doctors and nurses here had suffered plenty under Tina's torment. "You should watch the news more often. In the 7th year of the apocalypse, our country, in collaboration with others, finally developed a method to relocate the black hole. Aircraft broadcasted the black hole relocation globally, providing real-time updates on the retreat of the monsters. Many residents crowded at the base exits, waiting for the government to declare the surface completely safe, waiting for the base doors to open, waiting for sunlight to bathe the land once more. I didn't understand the principle behind it. In the footage, the black hole was gradually transferred to the far side of the moon, and the monsters on Earth's surface instantly vanished. During the live broadcast, the research team, led by Herman, stood in the shadow and remained unharmed. The base doors opened at that very moment, and all the residents cheered as they ran out of the underground facility. 7 years. We finally saw sunlight again. Sarah, Lucas, and I also ran out of the base together. A city left uninhabited for 7 years. Its buildings overgrown with vegetation, with many wild animals roaming the streets. But none of this matters now. The apocalypse is over, and we humans have endless possibilities for survival on this land. Overwhelmed with excitement, I hugged the person next to me, only to realize afterward that it was Lucas. Sarah had already run far ahead. I quickly pushed him away, my face as red as the sun. "Why is your face so red?" "It's just a hug." I couldn't utter a word, my heart racing so fast that all I could hear was its pounding. Seeing no reaction from me, Lucas pulled me into another tight embrace. Our shadows overlapped and merged, as did our heartbeats. Amid the deafening sound of heartbeats and the cheers of the crowd, I heard Lucas whisper softly in my ear, "I've wanted to hold you like this for so long. When you came back reborn and we met again, when you couldn't sleep at night from fear, when you broke down crying in your past life, when we succeeded in our research, Jenny, I love you. It's okay if you reject me, but on this day, the day the apocalypse ends, I wanted to confess to you." Lucas let go of me, putting distance between us. In the distance, someone set off fireworks, celebrating the end of the apocalypse. Our shadows and we gaze at each other. "I liked you too, even in the past life." That's all the story. What do you think of this story? Share with me in the comments section. What would you do if you were in this situation? Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.